There are many types of hazards in your chemical lab. One of that is chemical hazards, also biological hazards, and physiological hazards. In the second, on the following slides, we will discuss biological hazards, and after that, physiological hazards, and our main topic will be on chemical hazards. Biological hazards, as we mentioned, or as we know, experimental animals use inside the lab to be involved in the experiments by injected viruses, bacteria, or parasites. So we have to be careful when we handling these animals because they are a source of biological hazards. Also genetically modified agents that, such as some viruses have been modified, so they are very dangerous, very serious for us when we deal with them inside the lab. So we have to protect our body by wearing full suit clothes such as lab coat, and also shield or protect your eyes, your mouth, your nose from those dangerous viruses. Also, some plants are very dangerous for the person because they containing high they containing toxins. So we have to deal with these plants with hazards, and also some of these plants they are very allergic to our body. So we have to be careful when we handling these plants. And microbes, they are a source of biological hazards such as viruses, bacteria, and parasites. So we have to be careful when we handling sampling containing these infectious diseases by using cabinets, because as I mentioned before, cabinets it is very suitable in the microbiological labs because it and make the contaminated area is very small, because when we work inside the cabinet, we be sure to decontaminate the area when we finish the work by alcohol or by UV. So you make the lab very clean from those microbes, and make the lab workers safe while they working in microbiological lab. Physiological hazards such as compressed gases for example, nitrous oxide, which used in anesthesia, in surgical operation. Also, electrical hazards usually occur from time to time, so you have to be sure your electricity is in safe work in safe way, and there is no problems to avoid fire in your lab. Also, sleeping is one of the physiological hazards, and that usually result from is build of water reagents in the ground of your or floor of your lab. So you have to clean up immediately if there is any water, oil, or any material is built down on your on the floor of your lab. Heating devices such as oven, water bath, they are usually used temperature, though those machines are source of danger So when you deal with these machines, you have to be sure they work in good way. There is no problems in electricity. The temperature is in safe practice, and when you leave your lab, there will not be a problem if you left those devices open to avoid any fire in your lab. Also, moving machinery accident usually occur from time to time due to machines such as centrifuge, which will make hazards because it is very dangerous. So you have to know how to deal with this machine to avoid any risk for you while you are working. Projectile is also, or it is referred to any materials that may cause fire in your lab. So you have to be sure about your storing of reagents, chemical reagents, or gases in safe way. For example, compressed gases must be kept in cabinet, in special cabinets, and also, as I mentioned before, chemicals must be stored in ventilated cupboards to avoid any fires in your lab. There are many types of chemical hazards. Flammable refer to chemicals or agents that have ability to make fire, such as methanol. We all know that methanol had the ability to make a fire in the lab. So we have to be care when we handling these reagents, and to avoid any hazards, chemical hazards such as fire inside the lab. Also, corrosive, it refers to chemicals such as acids. It make damage to the skin. It make damage to your body. So you have to be careful when you handling these reagents. Toxin, it usually for example of that hazards is stain. Most types of stain is very toxic, so you have to be careful when you handling this powder. When you work with these reagents or powders, you have to be careful when you handling solution, when you handling powder. So you have to wear full lab coat, and you have to wear also mask to protect your respiratory tract and your body. Also, reactive, some reagents or some solution inside the lab, from time to time you deal with it. It have ability to react, so you have to be care to handle these reagents, not to make to put a wrong solution in another, to make hazards, to make something that going wrong inside your lab. One of the hazards that usually occur from time to time in chemical laboratory is due to flammable liquid reagents, which may cause risk or danger to the lab workers. One of these reagents is methanol and also ethanol. They are flammable, and so you have to be careful when you're handling these reagents, and you have to read and know all the safety data sheet, all the points to avoid any risk that result from those reagents. Flammable gas such as liquefied petroleum gas, which we use it for cooking, the same gas we use it in the lab. So we have to be we have to be careful to about that flammable gas, because it is very explosive and it can make a fire. So you have to make your lab workers aware when they handling the flame during the work, to ensure the gas is switched off when you left your lab, because it make dangerous fire, and it make injury to your lab and also to your lab workers. Corrosive substances is also source of hazards for in the chemical lab, so you have to deal with care when you are working, because those substances, they are very harmful to your eyes, to your skin. So you have to read the points of SDS safety data sheet carefully, to know what precaution you have what precaution you have to know about these substances, and what the measurement of injury that will occurs if any accident occur in your lab, and also what action you do when there is any accident occur to your eyes or your hands while you are working in the lab. Toxic substances is also source of danger for you, so you have to know which type of chemical is toxic, to deal with these reagents or powder in good way, in safe way, by wearing gloves to protect your hands from touching these toxic substances. Also by wearing mask to avoid inhalation that toxic powder, to protect your respiratory tract. So all these precautions will make you safe and good in your lab. Safety shield usually is used to protect you from chemicals that usually are explosive or flammable. So you have to use it, and when you are dealing with one of these chemicals, to make you safe in your lab. As you see here in the slide, there are ventilated cabinet or ventilated storage cabinet. Usually we use these cabinets for chemical reagents to make ventilation and to avoid any reaction in your lab and avoid any risk or hazards, and to make all the lab workers in a safe way, and also to make your lab safe and avoiding any risk or hazards. As you see here, the lab is with negative air, or with a low pressure of air, to avoid any accident of broken glassware or broken of chemical bottles. So you have also to be careful not to make the doors open while you are working in your lab, to assure that the lab with negative air, to avoid any risk or hazards. From all mentioned above, we know that there are many hazards and many chemicals in your lab, so you have to avoid the risk and hazards. One of that risk is fire, which can occur from time to time in the labs, so you have to follow these steps to avoid any fire in your lab by minimizing materials. If you have any excess materials and there is material that is not used in your lab, you have to discard it immediately, such as empty boxes. They immediately be discarded out of the laboratory. Also, to observe proper safety practices, to observe how the machine is working, if there is any problems, the electricity, the water supply, the filter system, anything that you have to observe from time to time to avoid any fire in your lab. Also, to store solvent in a proper way, because solvent, as you know, it has the ability to dissolve any other material, so you have to avoid that risk that may be result from those solution by storing them in good way. Also, one of to wear proper clothes, not because when you are in the lab, you have to know that your clothes must be not burn easily, so you have to choose clothes that is not burn easily if an accident is occur in the lab. Also, to avoid working alone, one of that one of those steps is not to work alone, because when you have another person with you, if there is any accident is occur, you can discuss with the person to make control for that fire. But you are alone, you become disabled to do anything alone. Also, plan and written emergency. It must be, or it should be written in good way, the emergency plan of your lab, and be distributed to all lab workers, and also put it in your walls to remember, to make the lab worker remember how can they deal with emergency and accident of fire. Also to train and exercise those lab workers to deal with a fire when emergency is occur, to make them safe and make your laboratory also safe. As you see here, there is a metal fire extinguisher. It is used in emergency cases of fire, and as I mentioned in the previous slide, the lab worker must be exercised and must be exercised and must be trained to use this tool when the fire is occur in your lab. One of that hazards is waste. Every or each chemical labs have waste, and it had a responsibility for discharge these waste. You have to contact the environmental program to help you to choose the suitable cans for each waste, to ensure that the waste will not be or will not make contamination in the environment. Trash disposal of chemicals, it depends on the type of chemicals. As I mentioned before, each chemicals has SDS or safety data sheet, and we have to read it carefully to know what type of hazards that chemicals will do, and what type of hazards that will result from the waste of these chemicals. And so if we do this, we will make the environment safe, and make your lab also clear, and your lab workers also free from hazards, and safe, and there is no risk, there is no hazards affect them from time to time. There might be many types of waste you have to know, such as free liquid. You have to do, or you have to put it in a special cans. Also laboratory glass and sharp, they will or they should be put in the safe boxes, a special box. Also radioactive waste, each waste have a special type of cans, so you should follow the safety step to make your lab and the environment clear from chemical waste. You see here in the last slide, there are many types of signs. We have to follow these signs to be safe and be healthy, and to make our lab safe and free from risk and danger.